Welcome back to One Winning Pod. We are here to celebrate Ravens' victory 31-24 over the Arizona Cardinals. And here to talk about it, myself, Alec, and is that Lord Vader?
I thought this was a costume party. First time doing this on YouTube. I thought we were all doing this in costume, man. You know?
Oh, man.
I have no idea if this is even coming through or not.
But, man, that was tough to fit under the with the headphones under that. But, yeah, man, this is our first year doing it on YouTube, so I thought we were going to do costumes. What the heck, man? You guys all left me out here to dry.
I just went as a generic office worker.
Here, I'm going to just do this the whole time. There you go.
There you go. That's acceptable. There's some effort there. Some effort there. Chris, you just put on a shirt. That doesn't count.
I just have to hold this here the whole time. For all you listeners, that was tailgoat, or not tailgoat, just goat, the Ed Reed beer. So just hold Ed Reed up to the camera for a long, long time. But yeah, guys, we had a really weird game. Weird because it was at 4:25 instead of the normal 1 o'clock slate. Weird because the Ravens did not cover. They got backdoored by the Cardinals, but they did win. And definitely more points given up by the defense than they were happy about. They were definitely disappointed after the game and talked about it. And the offense felt like they should have been able to score more points too. And a coworker came up to me and said, man, they almost blew it. And I was like, I never really felt like they were close to blowing it. I just was like a little disappointed that it wasn't, the 2-touchdown, 3-score game that it felt like the whole game was the ending.
I mean, it's Halloween week, man. It looked like it was going to be an easy game after the Ravens came back and answered the Cardinals touchdown with that Mark Andrews one. But, the defense just had to put a little panic into the Ravens fans. And, I get it. We just had this huge win coming off against Detroit. And we even talked about it in the preview. Like, it is a week-to-week league. It's great when teams can get into grooves and they can put together streaks of those types of wins, but it just doesn't happen very often year after year. I mean, the Ravens had some stretches there in 2019 and 2020, and hopefully we can have them again. But at the end of the day, you got to give the Cardinals a lot of credit. I think they had a way better defensive game plan than the Lions did the previous week. When we had Ed Smith on, he talked about how this team was not a team, with a losing record that was just going to bend over and, just fall down and let the Ravens run all over them. They were going to fight, and they did. Credit to them. I agree. I don't think the outcome of this game was ever in question in the second half. But still, yeah, I agree. Closer than we'd like it, but got to give credit to the Cardinals for fighting. They put up a good effort.
Yeah, it was a weird weekend of football too. Probably not as weird as that was at week one or one of the weeks early in the season where everyone lost who we thought would win and everybody won who thought we'd lost anyway. But still, I mean, you had the Chiefs losing to Denver of all teams. Yes, the Denver Broncos who lost 80-20 in like week 3 or whatever. And you even had the winless Carolina Panthers finally pull out a game against Houston, who everyone thought was an up and coming team. They looked pretty good. Had a couple of wins against better teams as well. So it's the NFL. Yeah, I agree with you guys. Like, even when they went down early, 7-0, I was a little surprised. I think the defense let up that a touchdown early. Just the last couple of weeks, they've only really let up. They only let up one touchdown to Detroit, and that was until the third quarter, I think. So, it was a little weird, but I agree with you guys. We pretty much had a comfortable lead throughout the most of the game. Even the end, I feel like if Aguilar catches that onside kick the first time, we don't really have this conversation. It was only that because he missed it, and then you saw him on special teams again, everyone was like, wait a minute. But, if that doesn't happen, then, I think the win's fine. But yeah, it was a little surprising, I guess. But overall, I think from both phases of the game, I think that there was a lot of good stuff. There's still some stuff that we still don't have answers to. But I think it sounds like the team is in a good mindset too. I think you might have been saying it earlier, Alec, that Rowe and Marlowe were telling the defense, hey, this is definitely not our best job. We can do better. They're going to get back. They're going to be working on that, and they're going to have to learn quickly because Seattle coming in next week. We'll talk about them later, but they're a pretty good team too. So they're going to have their work cut out for them.
I think this is the first time in a while that we've actually seen the defense suffer from something we've seen the offense deal with many a times, where they were positioned in a place to win the game versus put the best performance up. And it was just a little different. We were like, well, we'll let you score as long as you take a particularly long amount of time. We didn't want them to get any explosives on us. And they had to work perfectly. That touchdown to Marquise Brown was a perfect throw. Great coverage by Hamilton. It was just like the exact place to put it where only he could catch it kind of thing. And I think that was kind of their strategy. Even Harbaugh said that they called the same play 15 times in a row at the end of the game. So it was like very generic defense. Just don't give up an explosive play. And I think that's what led to all those points, 17 points in the fourth quarter. That's more than the Ravens have let up in basically every game except for 2, or 3. So, yeah.
I think that checks out too with how you look at what the game flow was going into the fourth quarter. I mean, sure, the Cardinals came out of the gate and they were able to take the opening kickoff back for a touchdown. But then after that, the defense clamped down, right? 2 fourth down stops in the first half, several turnovers. I agree with you. You did find the defense in the position that we've seen the offense in some coming games. But let's also not forget that the whole reason that situation happened was also because of the defense, because the defense did clamp down as we had to wait a bit for the Ravens offense to get on track. And, it's funny, the Ravens scored 31 points in this game, but at the same time, it doesn't quite feel like that's how many it was, right? Because a lot of the touchdowns that they had were on short fields due to interceptions, which was a great way to capitalize on that. I mean, we didn't see the offense hum quite like we did against in some of these other games this year. But still, I mean, a win's a win. You got out of it, mostly escaped without injury. I know Arthur Mallett went down late in the game, but other than that, hopefully he's not going to be too bad of an injury there. But other than that, yeah, he came out of this game looking pretty good, 6-2. And let's not forget, this is an incredible stretch that the Ravens are playing here this past 4 games. Yes, you lost to Pittsburgh. That was unideal. But then after that, quick turnaround. You got to flush that down the toilet and forget about it. Go to London, play the Titans, come back, play a very tough Detroit team, then go out west and play the Cardinals. And now this streak is going to end coming home to play a Seattle team that is certainly not a pushover at all. So all considered, when we did the schedule release show, we were looking at this stretch and saying, like, this is a stretch that could really make or break this team. And as it stands right now, they're going to exit this 5-game little travel thing you got here with a winning record, maybe with 4 wins. So when you look at the bigger picture, while this was a little bit of an ugly win, I think you really have to be pleasantly pleased with what the Ravens have been able to do over this stretch.
Let's go in a little bit more into the defense. So I wanted to piggyback off what you were saying earlier, Peter. So turnovers were definitely a good sign in this game. So you ended up having Brandon Stevens with an interception a little bit earlier in the game, which was great. Ended up scoring on that one, I believe. And then Geno Stone again, another game with another interception. Hard to believe, man. This is Geno Stone, the next Ed Reed back there, but 5 interceptions on the season in 8 games. Pretty great start for him. It was one of those situations too where Geno was in the right position, but honestly, Stevens probably could have got his hands on it too. I'm sure they were probably joking about it after the game and be like, "Man, you stole my pick." but yeah, I mean, they definitely won in the turnover differential. I thought they looked pretty good back there, and defensive line continues to be disruptive as well.
Yeah, Geno now has 3 consecutive games with a pick, 5 in the last 8 games, tied with Ed Reed, which is why I went for this beer. In fact, I actually cracked a different one out of the the 4-pack little holster thing, but then decided no, put it back in. I'm gonna go for this goat because I was reminded of him with the Geno Stone performance. And yeah, Stevens probably, like you said, like he was so perfectly lined up to get another pick and he got picked off. He got picked off. But Really great to see. Those were huge, like you said, Peter. Like the offense was struggling in either those short fields in order to get points. In this game, it wasn't as easy as it was last week, and yeah, definitely good to see those performances. You know, Brand Stevens and Geno Stone performing well, but then you had a couple disappointing performances too with like how Marlowe played. I feel like he's still getting his legs under him after this injury, and just like a reminder, man. You know, actually, for the video listeners, again, like you won't see the brace. Like I'm out of the brace. Life's good, but I can't use this wrist. Like it's not ready for prime time. And it kind of reminds you, you know, Knox, he broke his wrist, right? And they're like, oh, maybe he'll go on IR. I was like, he's definitely going on IR. He's not even going to be good when he comes back. You know, it's like it's one thing to be able to, you know, do some household things, and another to, you know, play football. In fact, actually, my doctor joked with me because I was wearing a Ravens hoodie. He's like, "Well, you're not prepared to play football yet, but you know, you can start doing a couple things, you know, without the thing." But yeah, definitely, I think it might take some time, and we'll talk later in the show about another guy coming off injury who I think, you know, has maybe put in that time and now is starting to look more and more like himself. So hopefully, Marlowe is in prime time for you know, the most important stretch of the season in the playoffs.
Definitely, yeah. And all along, I mean, I think it was pretty much expected that we were going to need to have some patience with Marlon. I mean, we're talking about he had surgery on his foot, you know, back and it was August, right? We're only talking about the very end of October here. Like, yeah, he can play through it, but that's he does a position that's a lot of running, and you need a lot of speed. And Marlon, he's getting up there in age, right? And he's got to go against some guys you had out there. I mean, he's older than Hollywood. He's obviously older than Michael Wilson, who, you know, isn't a super speed guy, but still he's got fresher legs than Marlon does. So yeah, I mean, that's what the NFL season is really all about, man. It's about patience and just understanding that these guys' bodies take a beating. Even the guys who play all the games and you know, don't miss any time due to injury for that year, your body's never 100%. And it's just all about the team peaking at the right time, right? Which is going to be the playoffs. And I think we'll see the best of Humphrey. What's really good about Humphrey, man, is he's been in the league a while, right? He knows how to play the position. He knows what his body can and can't do in the context of the NFL and how to adjust to that. So we've seen some positive signs, I think. But yeah, definitely we need to see more from him. But again, like we keep saying, like you're talking about, Stone's stepping up, Stevens is stepping up, Darby's stepping up. We got guys stepping up that are helping make the transitions for these guys who are nursing injury. And it's making it so that they don't have to do too much, right? It's giving them some time to come back. So I think the Ravens are in a good spot. But yeah, we definitely hope that Marlon can get healthy enough to be the all-pro self that we know that he has the capability of being, that his track record shows he can be.
Well, moving on to some good stuff, I think we got to talk about Michael Pierce on defensive line. I think he's continuing to have an incredible stretch, just super dominant, especially in the run defense. I mean, was just a menace for the Cardinals interior line. You know, I felt like for most of the game, I think the Ravens defensive line just, you know, up and down were having a way with the Cardinals, but particularly on the interior, I think Pierce, there were many plays where he's beating double teams to tackle the running back in the backfield. And, you know, I thought, you know, overall, just having a super, super dominant performance. You know, I feel like the only negative I can really kind of point to the defensive line is I felt maybe in the first quarter, I think that they were getting gashed a little bit by some runs by the run back. I think there were some cutback lanes that were a little bit open, and they just didn't have guys behind them to be able to tackle up. But especially in short yardage situations, even early, I think the Ravens were able to clamp down. They had those fourth down stops pretty early that the Cardinals decided to go for it. Those were great. But, you know, even then, I think the Ravens did adjust. I think it was actually something that Ed talked about with us at the Cardinals preview, that, you know, the Cardinals weren't very good at, you know, second half adjustments. I think that's where the Ravens really shined. And, once they figured out, okay, the Cardinals are trying to attack us this way, we're going to adjust a little bit. I think really that is when you just saw, a lot of dominance, especially in the run game.
Yeah, I was really impressed by Pierce in this game. I would say that he was involved with both fourth down stops, pass deflection on 4th and 1, and then the stuff play, obviously was there, taking a lot of space and penetrating. So huge game. The strip sack that wasn't able to get the ball afterwards. Clowney thought he had the way that Rowe put it. He thought he had a country fumble when there's no one around him, but he had actually a city fumble. There were people around. I didn't know it was like the nomenclature for fumbling. But huge game for him. Would love to see a way to keep him around long term. And then the other guy you want to keep around, Matabike, man. He would have had even more stats if it wasn't for that rogue penalty by Hamilton that everyone thinks is sus. And just I'm enjoying the running bit. I'm gonna allow him to get a sack every week if he wants, just to keep putting his price up, and it's fine because it'll mean more Ravens wins, right?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, he's still under contract for this year, even if he's playing his way out of town, right? And I mean, I'll have to go back into notes in the past, but he's getting dangerously close if he's not there already for the franchise record for sacks by an interior lineman. Because I thought if you look at Haloti, his career high was around 6 or so, and I mean, Matabike is already there, right?
Yeah.
And we're only halfway through this season, so yeah. And none of this is a surprise, right? We've always talked about Matabike, and he's shown all this potential, and it was just simply just consistency. That's what we were waiting for from him. Kind of not unlike Queen, right? Queen has shown a lot of consistency this year as well. And, you put those two together, that's been huge for this defense. And we can't say enough things about Michael Pierce. He just had so many impact plays in this game. We were talking about how the fact that the offense was able to get a big lead and how that was a direct result of what the defense was able to do to hold the Cardinals offense in check. And Pierce was one of the top guys there. He was forming a brick wall there with the other guys up front. And sure, Arizona rushed the ball a little better than we were expecting, but if you look at it, it was really they were just getting chunk plays, nothing big. 14 yards was the longest run of the day. Barely averaged 4 yards per carry. I mean, it was they kept running, but they really weren't having a huge amount of success. It was really just making some chunk plays. So great day by the guys up front. Yes, it could have been a little better, but I think a very solid performance from those guys.
It's incredible how the 2020 draft class has really come to age this year. Unfortunately, J.K. Dobbins goes down early, but you see Patrick Queen and Matabike performing really well. We've obviously seen what Devin Duvernay can do when he gets opportunities. Malik Harrison is a valuable edge guy and, not like a huge sack guy, but he's been really valuable in special teams and setting the edge. Phillips, he was a bust. Bredesen, we traded him away for picks. Broderick Washington earned himself an extension. R.I.P. James Prochet. And not actually, but just metaphorically. And then Geno Stone, like maybe the best of the bunch. Who knows? Like he's playing out of his mind. So suddenly the 2020 draft is looking a lot better.
Yeah, I will still take all the credit for finding Geno Stone for the Ravens, even though I didn't really know anything. I just read his draft profile, found a couple things online that was just like, hey, this guy might be a good guy for the Ravens to take a shot on. And that was the extent of my knowledge on that. So that's more luck than anything, I will admit. But It's still, great to see what he's doing, what Stevens is doing. I'm just trying to think what the last year was where we had so many of these mid to late round draft picks just all kind of coming into their own all at the same time. Because it just really feels like I just keep saying, the consistency we're getting from Matabike and Stone and Stevens, them alone, and is this all the Roquan effect? Because obviously Roquan helped Queen as well. It's just all this what we're getting for the second round pick is not just Roquan, but the best case scenario for all these guys as well?
Something about that secret sauce. Yeah, if it's Rowe, if it's McDonald. Yeah, I mean, it's all real clicking right now. I think not only are they've got like the coaching that they have to be able to get better. They've got the scheme that puts most of the players in good positions, and they have the accountability, I guess, to make sure that they're in the right mindset week in, week out, and want to keep getting better. Whatever that secret sauce is, yeah, they've certainly got it this year.
I definitely was liking what I saw out of Owe in this game as well. Unfortunately, wasn't able to get that monster sack. That had been really cool. But I thought that he, definitely demonstrated some good speed and played all right again. Kind of monitoring his progress off an injury.
Yeah, the sack was so frustrating because when he just came off that edge there, he was just had a huge full head of steam, and that play was done. But
yeah,
just couldn't wrap Dobbs up. I don't know if that's just a result of that's his first game back from injury after missing a couple games. I don't know if that's just adrenaline kind of turned over, or just an excellent effort by Dobbs. I don't know. It seemed like a sure thing when he had him, and I was pretty surprised watching it live that Dobbs was able to get out of that, and then just equally frustrated for Owe because, man, that would have been an excellent play for him. But I mean, it's still, I'm pretty sure that still broke up that play. And I think that the next play was a failed fourth down conversion by the Cardinals. So, I mean, still a positive play, even though it wasn't as the exact result that you want. And going forward, you do want to make that sack. But yeah, I mean, add Owe to the list of those guys. He hasn't had as many games to show it. But yeah, he's had a lot of positive signs so far this year.
I feel like he and maybe the old NFL would have gotten the sack there because he could have just completely pummeled him. But he had such a head of steam. I feel like in a way he wanted to let up, you know what I mean? Not completely destroy him, just run right through him. Which I will say, another guy, Queen. Dude, did you see when he turned on the Jets right near the goal line and he just absolutely demolished Dobbs? That's the reason Dobbs lost his job after this game. He probably isn't feeling all right. He got absolutely blown up on that play.
Yeah.
I was like, that's old school football right there. The way he hit him.
Yeah, that was a pretty incredible play. Yeah, I felt like I kind of switching gears for a second. Like Dobbs, I thought for the most part played pretty well. I mean, obviously those 2 interceptions. If I'm a Cardinals fan, yeah, I'm a little worried about those. But I mean, generally, I think he looked pretty poised. There were a couple of really good throws, like we mentioned earlier. That throw to Hollywood in the end zone, great pass. One other guy I did want to talk about too. Just in context of kind of looking at the defense moving forward, I thought McBride had a really good game, particularly in the second half against us. So it's one of those I'd really like to go back and look at the tape a little bit to see, what was it about him to be able to get open. I know he's a second round pick for the Cardinals. A highly drafted guy, pretty skilled. Him and Ertz we talked about in the preview episode. Good tight end duo. But yeah, I guess if I'm the Ravens, I would take a look at that and just say hey, it might be a little bit of weakness on that side. I don't know if that was just because of the Cardinals, because of how their offense is kind of set up, but I'd take a look at that. If you're working at the schedule and trying to find the teams with some tight ends that they know that can play pretty well, take another look at that because that might be something that other teams can take advantage of if they're looking at game planning against the Ravens.
It's a good point. I'm not sure. I'll have to take a look as well. It might be a byproduct of the 15 straight calls of the same thing. Maybe they realized, if we go here, it might be a good matchup. But I tell you, he definitely benefited from that weird convoy play where everybody was pushing, and even the retired ref on call was like, I don't know about that play. little strange to see it kind of let happen, and that's another 7 points that the defense gave up there, so definitely kind of feel for him in that situation because I would have been surprised they were to stop him in the goal line,
I mean, my fantasy teams weren't complaining about that play. I have
or my DFS lineup.
Pride, so. Oh man. Well, in that Scott Fishbowl charity league we're doing, where tight ends are super boosted, he got freaking 43 points. So that's
man,
that certainly helped. But yeah. So I mean, yeah, I think that the big thing with McBride was just I don't really think that we put that much attention to him, honestly. Of the catches that I'm looking back on right now that McBride had, I mean, most of it was, finding a soft spot in the zone where, I mean, it wasn't like he was feeling it out like Andrews will usually do. He was just running his route, and that's where he ended up. And then, I mean, when we were physical with him, with the exception of that one play in the end zone, I mean, the Ravens made it tough for him. Kyle Hamilton broke up a deep pass that was intended to him. One of the interceptions, I think it was Stevens' interception, was on a pass that was where McBride was the intended receiver. So, I mean, I do think it is a good thing that you pointed out there, Chris, though, because we do know in the past, this Ravens team, we've had difficulty covering the tight end. And I don't know if we can really say that we've faced teams so far this year who have a strong tight end game. And actually, looking back at our schedule, I think with the exception of Laporta, who's a rookie, we've had incredibly soft matchups against the tight end position to start the year. So we'll see. There's a couple games you got coming up here down the stretch. Evan Ingram for Jacksonville, George Kittle with the 49ers. Maybe Noah Fant next week against Seattle. He's had a couple games this year where he's made some big catches. So definitely something to keep an eye out for. Just given the fact that we just haven't really seen this defense go up against very solid receiving options from the tight end position yet this year.
Well, want to move on to the offense, I think. I think first got to start with Lamar Jackson. I think yet again, another really, really fantastic game from him, pulling up the stats. 18 for 27, only 157 receiving or passing yards rather, and a touchdown. So, I think in terms of numbers, not not like the game against Detroit, obviously, where passing yards are really the big thing. But I think from a passing perspective, just kind of looking at the eye test, I think another really great game from him, getting a lot of people involved, obviously. And, another monster game from Mr. Mark Andrews as well, who we'll talk more about. But, I mean, not too much, honestly, that I look at from this game and I'll be like, as far as critical from Lamar, I thought he continued to have a really great game.
Yeah, I think Lamar was in costume in this game. He played just like average quarterback play, no cape, left that at home. And he just did like very normal QE things. He did make a crazy throw to Mark Andrews for that touchdown, kind of like off one foot, like with a kick. But I think he, in general, didn't do that much Lamarvelous stuff, right? Like he just kind of like did his job. And I thought that was good. He had that one nice run though, after the many running back, Gus Edwards dive plays or whatever, like just Gus, and then he kept it and was able to make a nice run. If it only he adjusted his cleats more, he might have gotten some more yards. I was so frustrated with the cleat thing. I think that's the Cardinals' home field advantage. They figured out the cleats. They know how to have their cleats figured out, and everyone else that comes there is just slipping around like crazy and like maybe not making good adjustments because we saw a lot of Ravens players impacted by the slippage and not so much the Cardinals.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's just something about the grass there. I mean, it is a desert there. That must be a heck of a time with the field crew having to figure out how to get that to stay playable. But yeah, I mean, it was a perfectly fine game from Lamar. Credit to the Cardinals. I think they had a great game plan on there defensively to throw a lot of things at the Ravens and confuse them and make it extremely difficult for Lamar to be able to do anything on the ground. So you had to do it through the air, and for the most part, pretty efficient. The one thing that I do think we can put as something that wasn't terribly great was the first quarter could have been put the Ravens down in the 14-0 hole. I don't know if that was more on Lamar or Odell on that one pass, but that was very nearly a pick six. Ravens are really lucky that ball wasn't intercepted on the opening drive for the Ravens. And then Lamar got hit a little bit once the football had crossed midfield, threw a ball up to Bateman that Bateman had to quicken his stride and saved what would have been an interception probably, and not only saved it, but turned it into a big completion. So that was an excellent effort play by Bateman. I'm pretty sure everyone has pointed that out, that was a great play by Bateman there. But after that first drive, I mean, the rest of his passes were incredibly on target from what I can recall. Maybe there was an off-target one here or there, but nothing stood out that you're just like, oh man, Lamar really wanted that throw back. That could have been bad there, or really missed a big play there. So, and I think that's a great sign of a quarterback. Not every game is going to require a quarterback to put up a hero stat line, right? But every week you do need to come in and make sure you do all the little things really well, and that's what Lamar did this week, and he's what he's been doing all year. We're seeing some great growth, I think, from him from a passing perspective this year, and that was just an incredibly veteran performance there. And Lamar, I don't think he cares whether he's the hero or not in the game. He's kind of always come off as pretty much a team guy in interviews, but I think that still, takes something for a guy with the ability that he has to say like, hey, you know what? This week's just not my week. It's not my week to put up the monster stat line. It's someone else's week. It's this week. It was Gus's week, right? Didn't see anything from Lamar that suggested that he had a problem with that. And again, that's kind of the guy who we've always thought that he's been, but still, I think something worth pointing out, the team first nature that he shows.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, like you said, I think with Gus playing as well as he did this game, I mean, the Ravens still scored 31 points, 34 if Tucker makes that field goal, which we'll talk about later. But 34 points is more than enough to win a game, especially against the Cardinals. So, yeah, we'd love to put up 80, but we don't need to put up 80. Not for a game like this. So, yeah, I thought it was good. I feel like the only thing, and I feel like we have to talk about it. I feel like a lot of people have been talking about this, so we might as well bring it up now. Is I feel like the only issue right now with the passing game, what we have to figure out is Odell Beckham, and I think the main thing is a lot of those incompletions, 18 for 27. I think 7 of them were targets to Odell. I don't think he ended up with a catch.
He did,
and it's just one of those. I guess we got to go back in the film. It's probably something that I'm sure tons of people are going to be analyzing. But from what I can recall, a lot of those passes to Odell, almost all designed. They're, quick, like it's predetermined. Hey, it's going to go his way. We're going to take a shot within a second, basically. And just not hitting home. Some of them are, like the pass you talked about earlier, Peter, of that could have been a pick six. Not the best decision. Maybe not the best throw route. Something was off about that. And a lot of other ones too. Just, Odell not getting separation, not having the right proper timing. Just things aren't really working out. And, I think we've seen some flashes from him, but I think it's one of those that kind of gives you a little bit of pause. Like, that's a lot of targets. And, I think we just kind of got to analyze it a little bit of like, what is it going wrong? Is it Odell? Is it Lamar? Is it timing between the two? Is it scheme? What is it?
Well, I went to the film and I have some thoughts. So I will say the first play was just god awful, like you mentioned. Could have been a pick six. Wasn't good execution. But I think what happened on a lot of the plays is kind of understandable, and just I'm not terribly worried about it. So I want to first be like, okay, Odell got 2 defensive pass interferences called against him, and he could have easily gone a third. He was definitely held on a play, and it just wasn't called. So that counts for something, right? I would say that those are positive gains, basically a catch, no yak, whatever. Now, the other things that happened where the fast scheme to Bateman plays, I think some of them were byproducts of him being the hot read, meaning that they brought pressure, they brought numbers. Lamar was seeing, said pressure, and he went to the hot read. But of course, the defense also knows where hot reads would be, kind of like the Miami thing, and they were able to break up the play, and it was just a tough play. So obviously, you would like to see Odell get those catches, but they're just tough. You see that happen to a lot of players. So I don't know. My overall thought was Odell's he's kind of fine. It's not fine if He's not getting penalties, he's not getting anything, but I think there is like underlying production, probably like still low for what you want out of the number of targets, and is also depending on variance of refs and stuff like that. So something I want to see improve, but like I don't think it's like totally doom and gloom. I think, I guarantee you, I haven't listened to like many fantasy podcasts, but I guarantee you the box score lovers and munchers in the world are like, 0 catches. He's a non-factor in this offense. And it's just like, okay, whatever. Like I just can't agree with that. That's like piss poor take. You're not actually like watching anything. But there's definitely like a lot of nuance here. And I think the hard part is like Lamar's like literally acknowledging the fact they're trying to get him a touchdown in the press conference. Like it's clear that there's, we're halfway through the season. They want him to score. Everyone wants him to score. I think everyone would think that'd be great. It's been an unbelievable amount of time since he scored. Injury, we all know the story of his comeback here. So like, yeah, it's definitely, I think, something that's getting long in the tooth. And like, I honestly just hope that similar to kind of what we were saying with Bateman, like we're just like trying to crack open the dam so it can start, pouring, or the Olive Jar reference. Like, let's get that olive out for Odell soon. And hopefully it's not like too many more manufactured touches later. So like it can start rolling.
I mean, I get where your analysis is coming, and I don't want to say that I disagree with it, but I personally am starting to just wonder what direction the Ravens should go with Odell as the rest of the season continues. I think that this was a good idea in this game to scheme up touches for him, try and get some chemistry there between Lamar and Odell. But I wonder if the injury that he suffered against Cincinnati, he's still recovering from it, because I thought he looked really good against Houston. And in the beginning of that Cincinnati game, he was getting some good looks and he was making some good plays with the ball in his hand. Honestly, I think he would have had an excellent game against Cincinnati if he had stayed in there. All that production you saw from Aguilar, I think that would have all gone to Odell, and then he would have had probably a little more as well. But I mean, since that time, he just hasn't looked quite the same, in my opinion. And this is now 2 games where it just seemed abundantly clear to me that he's just physically not able to keep up with these younger corners. I mean, we saw it against Pittsburgh, and I think we saw it here. When I'm watching him, I'm just not I'm seeing a guy who's physically trying to figure out how to do what he used to be able to do in a game that is younger and quicker than he is right now. And I hate to play the comparison game because I don't think it's fair, and it's really hard to gauge between different situations, different teams, different schemes. But I mean, you just look at what happened across the aisle this week with DeAndre Hopkins to Will Levis, man. And look, I'll take the L there. I thought Hopkins was done. I did not want the Ravens to go in on Hopkins. I thought that both him and Odell at this point in their careers were basically the same, guys who are valuable to have on a team because they're vets. They know what they're doing. They can coach the guys, and you can depend on them to make a catch and clutch situations, but their best days are behind them. And I mean, Hopkins' best days might still be behind him, but he is proven. He proved this week that if he has a quarterback that can throw him the ball, he can still do things with it. And I just don't think that you're getting that from Odell from what we've seen so far this year. And it's taking snaps away from a guy like Bateman, who we need to develop to be a guy who's a real difference maker in this offense. So again, in a game against Seattle, we're not talking about Seattle yet, but we will. I think in a game like this, where the outcome is basically known, that the Ravens can win this game in a variety of ways. Yeah, I think this was a great time to try and get Odell some looks, try and get him some work with Lamar. But with the performance, what it was, to me, that shows that in a game against Seattle, Odell can't be a big part of the game plan. It's just, you can't tell me, okay, you got 0 catches on 5 targets against the Cardinals, and most of those targets you did not look good on, in my opinion, and say, yeah, we're gonna really lean on this guy going forward. I think you gotta give Bateman a better look on this offense, like we've been saying. And I think just monitor Odell's health. And when he's good, then we can go back to him. But I do think that that he's got to show at this point that he's healthy enough to carry that load.
Yeah, I agree. I agree somewhat with that. I feel like my main issue right now is I feel like he's exiting the game quite frequently. I know he did end up returning, but it seems like a pretty regular occurrence of like, okay, Odell exited with whatever and whatever, and they've been small, at least recently, I guess, but still kind of indicative of just can't rely on significant snaps from him at this point in time. Obviously, yeah, and hindsight's a little, a little hard to play here, I think. But yeah, like Hopkins is certainly a player. I think probably before Detroit, we would have been like, yeah, we really need because he's a big body target who can go up and get the ball. If you want to throw a fade to him in an end zone, like be my guest. Like, yes, he's going to come down with it 50% of the time. Odell's just not that guy, not really that guy. And, him and Bateman are pretty similar. Bate, I think, has been on record saying like he models his game after Odell. So, they're definitely a similar player. I think they can do a lot of damage in the intermediate game. It can, stretch the field a little bit when they're healthy. But, right now, I kind of agree with his health. I feel like we haven't figured out quite where to get him involved. I feel like recently we've been trying to get him more involved in the short passing game and then hoping that he can make guys miss, but we just haven't connected on those those passes. So figuring out like, okay, well, if it's not that, where is it? Is it the intermediate? Is it the deep passing game? Yes, we can get some defensive pass interference. Yes, that does benefit the offense, but yeah, it's more of a trade off of like, okay, well, we've got guys behind. Obviously, Aguilar, has been effective this game, not so much. Duvernay's still a guy who's there. Yes, we don't, necessarily need him to be a top target, but certainly we know that what he can do given those opportunities. So it would be good to kind of get some snaps on him. So I kind of agree at the end of the day, Peter, though. It was just, I think his health is the number one thing. It just, he doesn't seem like the same guy that we saw week one. We got to figure it out. But, I think at the end of the day, Monken seems like a guy who's like, he's flexible with his game plans. One week he's going to force feed somebody. Next week he'll force feed somebody else. He'll pass it around depending on what the week to week. So this could have been just one of those weeks. Like, hey, we really want to try to get Odell involved, see what happens. Next week, snaps might be different. So
I think two things are going to happen next week. Not to spoil any bold predictions, but I do think Bateman's ready for more time. So he did win out the snap count today, 62 to 57% versus Beckham. But I don't think that's fair because Beckham had the stomach contusion that made him miss some of the game. So maybe Beckham was on pace for more snaps. And I think that's the error. That's the thing that needs to be flipped. Get Beckham closer to Aguilar, who was at 42%, and get Bateman those extra snaps because Bateman's ready. This guy's, coming off that Liz Frank surgery, and I think he has shown over the last couple of weeks that he's feeling better. He's feeling more confident in his ability, and what we were seeing on film, him kind of cooking, it's continued and actually again and getting plays, saved Lamar. I think this is it. Like if you get Bateman going this next game, like focus on Bateman a little bit, give him that like special love. I bet you can get Odell his touchdown too, because Bateman is that dude. Prove it to the teams that he's that dude. Everyone knows that Flowers is. Everyone knows that Andrews is. Now get Bateman that dude. You got 3, and then I guarantee you Beckham's going to be open because no one can cover 4. So like that's the way to get Beckham cooking is you got to get Bateman cooking first.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah, because like you're saying, if Bateman steps up his role, then that'll make things easier for Odell. I mean, honestly, that'll make things easier for everyone on the offense, not just Odell. Zay and Andrews, even though they're having success, of course, it can get easier if we have a fourth option in this passing game that the defense has to account for. Yeah, so I really like how you put that, and I hope that's the plan going forward for the Ravens. Well, we can't finish our talk about the offense without discussing the big game that we had from the Gus bus. Man, I know there's been a lot of talk throughout the Ravens community. Use Hill more, use Gus more, use them equally. trade for Derrick Henry and Dalvin Cook, trade for no one, and just have Lamar run the ball. Everyone's had an opinion on what to do with this rushing game. And I mean, honestly, I think the problem is, like we're saying, it's just that we know that Hill and Edwards can do some things really well. But I don't know if either of them are complete backs. So kind of what you're going to get from either of them is going to kind of be matchup dependent, I think. But this was a game script and a defense that played right into what we know Gus can do really well, which is just punish the defense late in the game when they've been on the field for a while. And he delivered one of the best games of his career, 3 touchdowns, just continually churning yards, even when the defense knew that we were going to run the ball. Excellent game from Gus. Great to see him have that too. I mean, he had a decent game last week too. Of course, there was the big catch that was kind of fluky because of what the defense did, but that was a good read on his part. And 64 yards against the Lions defense, that's nothing to sneeze at. That's a very good rushing defense, one of the best in the league. So great to see Gus put together 2 very good outings back to back for a position group that we've had a lot of questions for this year since Dobbins went down.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I think the biggest question I think moving forward with running back as to the trade situation is really just do we have the people on the roster to be able to spell Gus because he's still very clearly effective, but I feel like looking at maybe some film from this game versus maybe Gus from a couple of years ago, I do think that there's a little bit of signs of just maybe not overuse, but you can see him slowing down in certain places of the game. And that's okay. Like, he's still effective. I think you spell him with Hill a good bit. I think if Mitchell comes back healthy, you have another option, another speed option as well. I think that can help a lot. But yeah, for this matchup, I think Gus did great. Obviously, 3 touchdowns. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at. That's a very significant from his production. So we love to see it. I think, if we have to ride Edwards and Hill for the rest of the season with a little bit of Mitchell, we're going to be fine. Would we like to see JK? Absolutely. It would have really helped to have all 3 of them there. But, I think it's more than enough that we're going to need. I think, obviously, this year, especially more than years past, the Ravens are not going to have to run through their run game. They're going to have to pass first. And so, anything extra that Gus and Hill can give us to be able to balance the offense is great, but we don't have to lean on them exclusively anymore.
I think that's really well said. We'll see if any trains get made in the next 24 hours. And we'll comment about them in some way, I imagine. But we'll see. We'll see if anything happens. But before we talk about our MVPs, we got to talk about special teams because special teams are an important phase of the game, and we actually have a lot of interesting things to talk about when it comes to special teams. So interesting that I think it almost is more interesting than the offense in a way. Like, offense, ho-hum, they scored points, they won. But the special teams, man, how did they do it? I think the first one I want to talk about is Stout. I think he had a huge game. He knows exactly where the 10-yard line is, and he will punt it within 1 yard either way, and perfectly get you inside the 10 or inside the 11. I feel like the inside the 10 is this generic cutoff point that we like to use for stats. Inside the 11, I think he would have been perfect this game.
No, definitely. And I mean, I know there was some, again, we're talking about with Stevens, like we're talking about with Stone, with Matabike, Stout. He had some moments last year where he was really critical in field positional games. And then some other games where, he shanked a punt or 2, had maybe too many touchbacks. And, we just wanted to see consistency from him this year. And overall, he's been really, really good. You're talking about all these notes we have for special teams. And I think it's just, everything we're talking about has kind of been a story all year, but just for one reason or another, I think this game kind of showed that the culmination of these things continuing to happen warrants discussion. And I mean, Stout, look, he's got Sam Cook there. You couldn't ask for a better teacher there. And I think that Stout is just being a sponge and learning from that guy, because you're just seeing much more improvement in the consistency department from him this year. He looks confident out there. He looks like he's having fun. I think that, we used a draft pick on him, sure. I know some people are still upset about that, but I think what you got here is a guy who's going to be here for a while and has a really steady skill set that is going to be critical to this team going forward. And, you're talking about the defense. We keep talking about how this defense is off to an excellent pace. Punter's part of that. He's been helping them all year. deal with offenses starting with the ball deep in their territory. So, man, Jordan Stout's been having a great year, and I think this game was as good an example as almost any this year to highlight that.
Yeah, in many ways, the punter is the first play of the defense. We're like, how far are we going to set you back before we go out there? Because we're not going to do a turnover on downs. So, yeah, I think that's a nice kind of perspective shift towards that play and be like, yeah, this actually really matters for defensive success rate.
So to move on from Stout, we're actually going to look at something that might not be a deal at all, but at least something that I thought is worth looking at as far as a consideration. And that is just looking at Justin Tucker's numbers from 50-plus yards the past 2 seasons. He almost had that 53-yarder in the game on Sunday, just hit the inner part of the crossbar and it bounced out, which actually puts Tucker's 1 for 4 so far this year of kicks of 50-plus, which is very un-Tucker-like. I mean, if we look back at his just looking at his stats, not really digging into them and looking at, where were the kicks? What was the game situation? Because I think, when you look at kicks, you can't just look at the percentages. That doesn't tell you absolutely everything, although we are talking about the most accurate kicker in NFL history, but still. Generally, of course, he's Tucker. He's been excellent from 50-plus yards, but he's missed 8 kicks from 50-plus over the past 2 seasons, which is the worst mark of his career until you go back to, I think, 2014 to 15. This was I researched this well, but I think I could have organized my notes a little better. But yeah, I mean, so after he had a good bit of misses for Tucker between 2014 and 15. Between 2016 and 21, I mean, the guy was nearly perfect. Missed very few, including a couple seasons where he didn't miss any from that distance. But the past 2 years, there's been some misses, but at the same time, you look at the number of kicks he's taken. I mean, already this year, starting from the beginning of 2022 to the midpoint of 2023, I mean, the man's kicked 18 kicks from 50-plus yards, which is already too short from the most he's ever kicked in 2 consecutive seasons, which is 20. So, I mean, the fact that he's had 8 misses, you also got to look at the fact that he's kicking more. So, I haven't heard anyone talk about this, and probably for good reason, because it's probably not anything to look at and say, like, this is a problem. But you look at the misses he had in 2022. Okay, he had 8 misses. 3 of those were blocks. So then he had, I said that he had 8 misses in 2022. 5 misses in 2022, 3 of which were blocked. He missed a 67-yarder to potentially win the game in Jacksonville, and then he hit the upright for 50 and missed a 56-yard against the Giants. And then this year, okay, he had missed a 59-yarder against Cincinnati. That one was long enough, but it was wide right. Missed a potential game winner against the Colts, 61 yards, bad weather. Hit the upright at Arizona from 53 yards. So, I started this because I looked at those numbers at first, and I was just like, well, that looks like something of a concern. Tucker's usually automatic from, that distance. Distance doesn't really matter for him. But, I mean, you look at these numbers, and it looks to me more like some bad luck rather than indicative of a bigger problem. But I wanted to pose it to you guys and see if you had any thoughts, if you'd noticed that, and if there's anything to glean from that going forward.
I mean, from this game's perspective, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't super worried when it happened. Yeah, I mean, I know he's missed a couple of big ones, but they've felt like they're in early in the game, so they're really not in a moment where it's like, okay, you have to make it. And usually, I don't have data to back this up, but just anecdotally, usually if he misses it early, it's end up actually being good practice, and then for kicking it down the middle and at a field goal that actually matters a little bit later in the game. And that kind of, lined up with the Arizona game, right? He missed it in the first, second quarter, and he ended up making a kick later. Obviously, it wasn't as long. I think it was a 48-yarder or something, but he did end up making that one, and that one looked pretty good. So, from that perspective, I'm not super worried. Obviously, I think there was only one that I can remember that he missed that was like a gimme. I mean, that was the extra point against the Saints where, what the heck happened with that one. That was just, a wild kick. But I mean, he's Justin Tucker. I mean, he'll end up making more game-winning field goals than he ends up, losing any of those. So I'm not super worried. I do think it's interesting. Yeah, you had a couple of blocks in there. Obviously, blocks, there's a lot of stuff that could go wrong. Could be blocking, could be the trajectory of the ball going off the kicker. It depends. Still could be on him, but still, I think that's interesting. But yeah, I mean, he also have to think about it too. I mean, he's given more attempts than pretty much any other kicker in the league too. So yeah, I mean, he's got the trust of the coaches obviously, and everybody on the team trusts him. I mean, he's Justin Tucker. He has a legacy at this point. So there, you have to consider that of just like if everybody trusts him to go out there, then more often than not, he's probably going to make it. But if he misses, like, that's okay. I mean, he's got the technique down. He's going to come back and get it. I would only be concerned if we start to see him missing consistently game winners. Then I would be concerned. But the second quarter ones that he misses, like, I don't care.
I'm concerned. And it's not because of the stats that were presented here. And I think, Peter, you are doing a great job putting it all together. But I think similar to music, it's the notes that are not getting played that are almost more important. And the reason I'm concerned is that they aren't actually putting them out there as much as they used to. There have been many kicks this year that he could have taken from 50-plus yards that they decide to punt instead. And you could say it's game flow and it made sense, like we were ahead or whatever. But I think there is underlying concern that he's not quite as good as he once was in that field range. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing because that's still tough for many kickers in the league. I'm not saying he's not still a top kicker in the league, and I like his clutch gene and all that. I'm not worried about that, but I don't know if he is like an undeniable X factor anymore from the longer field goals. And I want to be proven wrong about this, but I do think based off of what I'm seeing about when they don't put him out there, and what we're seeing with some of this, because I think even though, blocks, I think are a strength problem. I think because like he would kick it a little bit higher, and that's a hitter like problem. And then like hitting the upright, I think is also maybe a problem because like putting more power, you lose accuracy. So I feel like he's using the top end of his range a little bit more, and it could be one of those things where 55 yarders, 57 yarders used to be at like 80% capacity for him, and now it's 90, but that 10% cost a lot. Similar to like stocks, right? Like adding a little bit of extra risk, like to get a little bit more gain is actually a lot more risk. Like when you build a portfolio. So I'm kind of thinking that's where he's at now. And like I said, hope you're wrong, but that's kind of where I'm at right now. Love you, Tucker. Don't kick
it's got like
don't kick my ass.
The decline has to happen at some point, right? But yeah, I think we're all in agreement too of like we're not in the market for a new kicker. That's
absolutely
not,
no. That's
absolutely
not.
No.
Yeah.
But
I think really what
probably
you're
like the 55 plus. We're like, okay, maybe not,
right?
Maybe not give me, but.
Which I think makes sense because, I mean, it's just like you talk about this with any player, right? Yeah, I mean, as they get older, and this I'm sure when Lamar is, in his gets to, I mean, gosh, Tucker's 33. It's hard to sometimes remember that he's not the youngest player ever anymore. But when the body ages, stuff that you used to be able to do really well obviously gets harder. I mean, when Lamar gets older, there's in his early and mid 30s, there'll be questions about his rushing ability. I'm sure. I would be very surprised if he's able to rush the ball as well. I mean, arguably, he's not rushing the ball as well as when he came into the league, right? I mean, that's just kind of with the way he's put on muscle and I mean, gosh, what's your peak physical fitness is like when you're in your early 20s anyway, like 21, 22 or something like that. But yeah, and I agree. None of this is to suggest that Tucker is washed. It's simply to just the reality of even for the best NFL players, age comes, and with that, you always need to have a mindset of how does this change how you deploy this player. And with Tucker, we've always viewed him as just like, anywhere on the field he can kick it, and I'm not convinced yet that he truly, he's at that point yet, but I think it is something that I'm at least keeping an eye on. And I mean, something for encouragement, though, definitely. And you mean the accuracy, the man still has it. I mean, he only missed one field goal last year from less than 50 yards, and that was in the range of 40 to 49. Hasn't missed a field goal below 50 yards this year. Okay, he's missed an extra point. I can't remember which one that was. Sometimes weird things can happen on extra points for a variety of reasons. So, yeah, I mean, it's just something that I think is just a little more jarring than usual when we talk about a player, because we're just so used to Tucker being able to do everything right. And I mean, arguably, as a kicker, all he's got to do is kick the ball through the uprights. So, it's a little less nuanced of a talk than, say, like, an aging Derek Mason or someone, right? Not to pick out Derek Mason, but I mean, it's wide receiver Odell, right? Like we're talking about with Odell. Physically, he can't do what he used to be able to do.
we just had this conversation.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Tucker is still going to be an effective player for it. Gosh, the guy could play. Vinatieri retired when he was like 45, and was still kicking decently well. Tucker might still have 12 years left on the Ravens, man. He's going to be here a while.
I think moving on to the hands team portion, we got to see an in-game adjustment, because normally you only see their onside kick maybe once in a game, but we actually saw it twice, and they did the exact same thing. And the first time it took this like weird short hop. Aguilar wasn't aggressive enough. They are able to recover it on the bounce and go and kick a field goal and get that backdoor cover. Vegas was happy, but then he was a little bit more aggressive, caught it, game over, right? So hopefully this is something that they can learn from in this like low leverage situation and not have it happen again later when it maybe will count more.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, you almost want this to happen, right? I mean, to see that there's a something that needs to be worked on for in-game situations for onside kick in a situation where, honestly, I mean, I don't think it mattered that failed, even though the Cardinals were able to go down and score a touchdown. Well, they still needed to convert that yet again, and then that offense, I think even if they had recovered it, the Ravens still would have been able to hold on and win. I think the defense would have put their ears back and been able to close the door. But yeah, I mean, I think it's something that the coaching staff, I think, is definitely going to be bringing up in team meetings. They're going to be analyzing it, particularly Harbaugh. I mean, being a special teams guy himself. So, yeah, hopefully this is the only time we see that get executed in that fashion. And then if this happens in a high leverage situation, on a game that actually does matter, in a situation where the Ravens would not be in a good position if that was failed, they're prepared for it.
Yeah. All I have to say about it, that's what's called trial by fire.
Yep.
There's no better teacher in a situation like that, where it's like, oh yeah, how often is this going to happen? Yeah, right now. So fix it or we lose. So, But other than that, I think we're probably ready. This episode's running a little bit long, so we should probably go ahead and give out our MVPs. I'll go ahead and start. I think this is an easy one. Gus Edwards. Love watching Gus, man. He's my running back. I don't care how many people out here want Derrick Henry. Gus is Derrick Henry light. He's always has been.
Okay. We'll see what actually happens tomorrow. But what would you trade for Derrick Henry? 1 year rental, mercenary.
I mean, I'd only do a second just because we seem not to draft anybody with a second. But I don't really want to do a second.
Okay, Peter.
It's a second only because we can't draft with a second.
Yeah, second round picks are toilet paper. You don't need them.
Okay, you guys disgust me.
Here's the argument. I mean, it's
no. Value wise, no. I wouldn't do that much. But we have. There's all the cap considerations too. Of just he's got a big contract and we don't have any cap room, so we've got to eat some of it.
Cap is crap.
I don't know.
Cap is crap.
For what it's worth.
One billionaire needs to pay money inside the other billionaire. That's all we're actually asking for here.
Look, so my argument for Henry, because I know from chat you guys were not at the position that I'm at, was, I mean, it doesn't matter now because he's not on the block. The Titans aren't going to trade him. It was not to push Gus to the bench. It was simple, like you guys were saying earlier, just another insurance there for, who else is going to get carries. Like, I'm pro bringing in another playmaker to this offense. Derrick Henry. I don't care if you're having two power backs. You got Speed and Hill. You got Lamar. Like, I don't think it's redundant. I think both of them could have thrived in this offense, and it just would have been a nightmare for opposing defenses to have to worry about Derrick Henry bashing you, and then, all right, he's out of the game. We got a break. Oh, wait, now you got the Gus bus. I think that would have been a sick power combo there, but moot point. He's staying with the Titans. So
how do we know this though? Like, there's still time. Is this just like a report? Is Shefty saying he's off the block?
That's what I forget if it was Schefter. Someone said on Sunday that the Titans had, before kickoff of the game against Atlanta, the Titans had notified Henry that he wasn't getting moved.
Oh, okay.
Which, of course, is a rumor. So, I mean, like, it's you take it for what it is. But that was the most recent I saw, was that the Titans had received offers but didn't get back, weren't being offered the compensation that they wanted. So they put a close to the deals.
All right. Well, I'm willing to give up like 30 JJ points, aka like a 5th round pick, maybe a pick swap. That's it. Like, a second, like, no way. For a rental for that old back, like, I'm out. Like, I'd rather just see Melvin Gordon get carries if they really need somebody else to get carries.
Oh, snap.
I mean, like, honestly, like I can't give up that kind of draft capital. Not with like not with the draft ahead, not with what's going on. With this team and with how many people we might lose to free agency. Now we fill the roster. So
yeah. I don't think he dramatically changes the offense one way or the other.
I'll pick an MVP real quick, just to like leave Peter another 51 players to choose from, and I'm gonna just go with Stevens. I've been so happy to see his improvement throughout the year. Got a pick, could have had 2. Darn you, Geno Stone, and just playing great ball. The number 1 corner on this team.
Michael Pierce, man. Michael Pierce making big plays on the defense in the first half, on 4th downs, keeping the Ravens in the game and hanging around until the offense was able to catch fire and do their thing. He gets mine for this week.
Great pick. That's definitely. I was hoping you'd pick him because I was like, yeah, real shame he wasn't an MVP. But yeah, excellent show, guys. I'm looking forward to the Seahawks matchup. First game this year with the 3 of us all together. Gonna be awesome. Can't wait to do it. And if you're going to the game too, you want to say hi, you know where to find us at onewinningpod@gmail.com. OneWinningPod on Twitter, Sky, Blue Sky, no. Threads, yes. and YouTube. Go check out the YouTube channel. Go see Darth Vader who made an appearance on the show. Go see what we've been cooking with other guests and stuff. And we'll talk to you soon. Go Ravens.